Hello everyone. I'm really pleased to have been asked to give a short update on what we've been up to over here in the United Kingdom and see, maybe look at what differences there are between what we do over here and in the US, and look at what the future might hold as well and what we've learned so far. So having spent some time with US colleagues at the CJ conference in the past, we have looked historically at the similarities and differences between what we offer, both sides of the pond, so to speak. And over here, we don't have the same legislation as you do in the States. We don't have the same systems, working processes, and sometimes even stakeholders, so that things are a little different. There's a really clear focus on the contractor or works promoter to get the information they need and to be wholly responsible for it. It's my understanding that in the US, it's slightly different, where the historic approach has been a much wider share of responsibility between the works promoter, the one call centre, the locator service, and the asset owner. So the way it works over here in the UK is that the user gets the asset information and then is responsible for locating and marking out on site before excavating safely around it. It's a really clear sense of responsibility. I'm not saying that every contractor really loves it, but it's very clear on who should do what and when. And there's always pros and cons of each system. And we really enjoy learning from others about the pros and cons of other systems so we can help improve our systems over here. But what's always been clear is that despite all the differences, key fundamental issues remain, whether you're in Boston or Birmingham. And I mean the UK Birmingham when I say that. We're all there to help people work safely and protect critical national infrastructure. As AI helped us on this occasion as we asked for a prompt, the tagline was different laws, different systems, but the ground doesn't care where you are. And we've all seen the implications of what happens when things go wrong. So if there's anything we can learn from others, please do get in touch. But in the meantime, I'm going to pass over to two of our awesome team in Katie and Rick, who will explain what we do beyond the usual search to help our users work safely and more efficiently. Thank you, and really hope to see more of you soon.
Hello, and welcome to this whistle-stop tour of the LSBUD Advanced Services. My name is Rick, and I'm joined by my colleague Katie.
Hello, Katie Donovan. I'm the user support specialist at LSBUD, so I'm sort of the point of contact for our users if they have any queries or issues, but also I have a lot of experience with LSBUD from that user perspective, which is why it's so valuable. I previously worked in the telecoms industry with a contractor as their hot drop controller. So I was the liaison between the utility companies and the contractor, sort of handling all of the high pressure pipelines and just making sure everything was safe and that we were okay to proceed before works took place. Which I think is a really important thing to start off with, especially because of the responsibility that we have in the UK when it comes to that excavation. It's down to us to identify those assets and make sure that everything is safe before we can do that digging. And that's where Line Search Before You Dig, LSBUD, really does sort of push that safe digging for all aspect. And we just want to make sure that we can provide as much information as possible free of charge.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, we've done a lot of these user engagements, haven't we, Katie, over the last couple of years. And if anyone doesn't know, we've got around 350,000 active registered users here in the UK. They put about just over 4 million searches through the system a year. So that's a lot of searches, one every 10 seconds or so flying through. But we do find that there's more that we can do for them, isn't there? And hence the development of the advanced services, because there's a lot of different folks putting searches in. I'm right in thinking, Katie?
Yes, our users in terms of engagement vary so much, from just sort of Joe Blogs at home who's putting in a new fence in their property, all the way through to utility companies and contractors. And even those in agricultural works, the farmers and landowners, everybody uses our service free of charge. We're available for all to use with no restriction.
You're absolutely right. We very much are safe digging for all, as is floating above our heads and is not quite tattooed on our arms, but we're getting there. I mean, we are very much, as I say, it's a wide span of users. So there's a very great difference in the types of additional services that we carry out for either for high volume users, for the less experienced users, different people in different fields. We've focused on currently on sort of 4 core advanced services. Can you talk us through those, Katie?
Yeah, definitely. So the 4 different services range really dependent on sort of the type of user you are. We sort of starting with the most basic of services we have is what we call our top-up service. And the top-up service is really there for those infrequent users is probably a good definition. So the ones that maybe submit 1 or 2 inquiries a month, or even a handful more than that. It's more sort of those limited searches where we can top up your search for you. So at LSBUD we have just over 170 different members, where we hold their information and provide that. But there are obviously far more than that in terms of utility companies across the UK. So those that aren't members of ours at the moment, we do sort of provide the top-up service where we can reach out to those companies on the user's behalf, just to save them the time that it can take, and as well the cost in sort of admin fees if you are a small company in doing that yourself, where we have a set service charge and then disbursement fees based on the costs from those utility companies for their maps. And we put all of that into one PDF report for you, and then send that through in either 5 or 10 working days, dependent on which of those options you want to include.
Yeah, and as you say, the top up, as the name suggests, you start with an LSBUD and then you top up. But we've also got services that deal with big infrastructure projects. I mean, that's for the, as you say, a smaller ad hoc users, but big infrastructure projects we've been looking at as well. Katie?
Absolutely, yeah. So we've had a lot of engagement with some massive infrastructure companies at the moment, and a few really good customers have been coming back to us too, where we can provide, dependent on the scope of what you need, we've got either the large site service or the digital insight service. So the large site service basically sort of we provided with the scope of an entire project, and through the one call service, it is restricted to 1 kilometre squared for your polygons, for your search areas. But we can take an area that's much larger than that, and we will tile that up into 1 kilometre squared areas for the user, and then we can submit that directly through to their account on their behalf. We had a major infrastructure project where a customer came through to us, and when we calculated the number of searches that would be required, there were over 1,100 searches required for the inquiry. So I'm sure you can imagine how long it would take for somebody to submit that many inquiries to their account one by one. And that in itself, the manpower that you save by us tiling it and then submitting to their account for them. And from there, they then just process the responses as they would a normal inquiry that comes through, and they can handle that information in the best way that they see fit based on their company priorities. The other service that we have that we've found has been really good, more so with especially the planning aspect of works. When you're initially finding out everything that's in the area, it gives you an idea of congestion around where you are, is the digital insight service. So
that's definitely been on the design and build, you're right, actually, isn't it, in terms of the pre-planning, getting everything in one place, getting all your ducks in a row.
Yes, definitely. I think they've found great benefit in both parts of the service as well. We have the mandatory sort of preset part of the service is a full PDF report. So kind of like the top-up service where I said it had the non-LSBUD member information. We would go and request all of that, but we also supply the LSBUD member information within that report too. So it's one fully comprehensive report of all the utilities we've been able to identify in that location, whether they're a member of LSBUD or not. And that in itself is such an important part of the searching, to ensure that you know absolutely everything that you can find in the area to ensure that you are safe. And from there, you can then upgrade that search. And what you have then is the option to have what we call a digital composite map. And that composite map basically provides you with an interactive map that's layered, where you can flick those layers on and off to see specific assets or all of the assets at once on one PDF map. And it uses OS background mapping to make sure that you can see the location and where that is in relation to your location of works. And that's been really helpful with people identifying some very high voltage cables that could potentially be going straight through the piece of land that they're looking to work on. It could be that they need to then go back to the drawing board and change the scope of their works, but it just gives that digital view that can then be used to sort of prioritize locations and safety.
And it definitely is that situation where you get everything in one place, but it is very clear what you're looking at any one time. We don't want anybody to miss anything, but being able to clearly define what they're looking at, I think the composite map with the digital data behind is invaluable for those very large infrastructure projects. And we are talking massive projects, aren't we, here in the UK?
Yeah, some of the projects we've been quoting on, I had one the other day that was 80 square kilometres, which I'm sure you can just imagine the pure mass amount of information that would be in that area. The time it would take for people to obtain that themselves is just invaluable. It can be used in other aspects of the business to basically be a way to just improve everything. And I think people are finding that to be the key part of the support that LSBUD can provide.
The other one that obviously is very close to my heart is the user API, which pretty much does exactly as you would imagine it does. It's the computer-to-computer version. So that, where we've been talking about individual projects and individual users, that's very much a high volume user situation. For those people putting thousands of searches through the system a year, in some cases hundreds of thousands of searches through the system a year, using the API to go direct from their system into our system and dealing with that basic element of putting a search in. Still got the same kind of response output, but it makes it so much more efficient, doesn't it, Katie? And
definitely, I just think the time itself with that, like as someone who used to be in that industry, the API service would have been such a benefit to me and my team back then. Just the time it would have taken for us to just push that machine to machine, and then we could just flow through those email responses and sort of handle the information instead of having to take the time to submit each inquiry individually. We used to sometimes have massive projects with sort of 150 different points of work, so you'd be individually submitting 150 different applications, whereas if we'd had access to the API service, it's something where that could have just saved so much time and becomes much more efficient. I believe it sort of takes that human element out of it, so there's less chance of human error in terms of the searching aspect.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Anything we can do to improve efficiency and safety is absolutely what we're here for. We want to protect the assets that our memberships have entrusted with us, but it's keeping those people safe on the ground and making that as efficient as possible. Hopefully that has set the scene a little bit. Katie and I carry out regular training exercises, training sessions, webinars, and throughout the year. So anybody who's at all interested in a bit more of a deep dive into how LSBUD work, how we work with our users, and very much on the advanced services, please reach out and we'd be very happy to engage in that way. And all I can say now is enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully if you're ever over this side of the pond, we'll get to meet you in person. So thank you for your patience, thank you for listening, and take care.
Thank you. Bye.